On the day of my surgery, my dad held my hand and, with a calm expression, said, "Don't be scared, girl. Everything will be fine. I'm here, and Yenzi's here too. Everything will go smoothly." I replied casually, "It's no big deal. If you're out in the world, you're bound to get cut sometime, right? You, old man, should go find a place to get some sleep." My dad had heavy bags under his eyes, and they were bloodshot. You should know, he usually snores as soon as his head hits the pillow and always sleeps soundly. He waved his hand and said, "I went to bed too early last night. That's why I have bags under my eyes. Oh, by the way, Yan's mom is making you some black bone chicken with ginseng soup. It tastes amazing." Once Dad started talking, he wouldn't stop. I knew he just wanted to spend more time with me. After all, the surgery had a low success rate, and his only child was about to brush past the gates of hell. But I forced a calm smile and waved my hand. "Off you go, old man." At that moment, I felt like Guan Yu undergoing bone-scraping treatment, tough and unflinching. Outside the operating room, Zhong Beiyan was crossing himself and praying, "Oh, Almighty Lord, please protect her. If you don't, I'll switch to worshipping the Taoist gods." I tugged on his sleeve and said, "When did you start believing in Jesus? Weren't you Buddhist last month?" He chuckled and said, "Last night." I pinched his thigh. "Switching faiths like that won't work." He winced in pain and muttered, "It'll definitely work. With a believer as precious as me, Jesus will work hard to keep me around." I joked, "You guys better be careful with that knife. What if I don't wake up?" His face darkened, and he said firmly, "That won't happen." I didn't laugh. After all, it was rare for him to be stern with me, so I didn't want to ruin the moment. Sigh, that's just how he is. He can't even pretend to be mad at me. Yeah, when you truly love someone, even faking anger feels forced. Alright, let me get a bit poetic here. In the 28 years of my life, I've always treated Zhong Beiyan like a soft, squeezable cushion. As a kid, he was always a teary, snotty mess. Not like now, when his wide-open eyes held just a little bit of wetness. As they wheeled me in, Dad took a few steps and stopped outside the operating room, waving, "See you later, girl." Those 3 words, "see you later," were choked with emotion. Maybe it was the bright lights, but for a moment, the wrinkles on Dad's forehead seemed deeper than usual, like they had been carved by a knife. I started crying. "Dad, all these years, your troublemaker daughter has caused you nothing but grief. Luckily, you're resilient. You faced every challenge head-on, and everything turned out okay. Dad, if I don't wake up, forgive me for being so cruel and unfilial. Don't be sad. Live well. Maybe let Aunt Shui find you a companion." I wanted to say all of that to him, but I couldn't. I was really scared I wouldn't wake up. Ugh, bad luck, bad thoughts. My name is Li Dongmei. I have a dad but no mom. Maybe it was to make up for the motherly love I never had, or maybe it was because my dad felt guilty for giving me such a ridiculous name, but he spoiled me rotten. Growing up, he gave me the best food and toys and would cover for me whenever I messed up. As a result, I became a wild tomboy. I was tough and had no mercy. At 8, I hit a kid with a brick for saying, "You don't have a mom," giving him a concussion. At 12, I shaved Lee Daya's chihuahua bald. When the neighbors came to our door, my dad apologized, paid them off, and smoothed things over. He even offered to buy the poor, pitiful dog. Once the neighbors left, he grinned at me and said, "Hey, this little mutt would make a great dog hot pot for us." Of course, this was all possible because my dad had money. He ran a private clinic and was a highly skilled doctor, well respected by the locals. But I think the real reason people liked him was his mastery of the middle way. He never took on risky cases. If he couldn't cure someone, he'd send them to a bigger hospital, never taking chances that could ruin his reputation. Also, he had a great temper and treated patients and their families with kindness. A doctor like that, who could keep good relationships with patients, naturally had a steady stream of clients and income. People called him Master Dong. He liked being called Master Dong. Even between us, we didn't use typical father-daughter terms. He called me Brother May, and I called him Master Dong. Every morning, my dad would shout, "Hey, Brother May, what do you want for breakfast today? Fried dough sticks or steamed buns?" I'd yell back from bed, "Whatever, Master Dong, you decide." Then I'd go back to sleep. He'd laugh and say, "Got it, just wait and see." Then he'd run off to buy breakfast. The only time I remember seeing him really angry was when I was 12 during Lunar New Year. My second uncle got drunk and, pointing at me gnawing on a pig's trotter, sighed, "If your mom were still here, this girl wouldn't be so wild." My dad exploded and slapped him across the face, knocking out one of his front teeth. That night, Grandma was so upset she didn't eat New Year's dinner. Everyone knew that no matter how good-natured my dad was, there were some things that would set him off. Even after all these years, Dad still hated when people brought up that topic, unless he was the one doing the talking. To him, it was the great untouchable taboo of his life. I understood too, which is why I never mentioned my mom in front of him. Because someone once told me that when I was 3, my mom died on the operating table at the provincial hospital. The surgeon that day was my dad. Thinking back now, I'm sure my dad quitting his hospital job and going into private practice was deeply tied to that incident. I love my dad and he loved my mom. Let's leave it at that. Loving someone means protecting them and making them happy. It's such a simple idea, straight out of romance novels, but the first time I ever heard someone say it, it came from my neighbor Zhong Beiyan. At the time, he was quoting from a book while winking at me. I should clarify that while my dad always indulged my troublemaking, this never extended to bullying Zhong Beiyan. Bullying Zhong Beiyan was just a daily routine, my personal habit. So, when I heard Zhong Beiyan's heartfelt confession and saw his usual roguish charm, I rolled my eyes so hard I nearly passed out. I said, "Your sister's heart, maybe." Then I kicked him in the calf. He cried out and ran back to Aunt Shui to tattle on me. That year I was 10 and so was he. I was half a head taller than him. My dad said there was a reason I was taller. Back when my mom couldn't breastfeed me, my dad took me to Aunt Shui to feed me. Aunt Shui had plenty of milk and could feed both me and Zhong Beiyan at the same time. At that time, I would nurse on the left side and he would nurse on the right. While drinking, I would push him with my hand and kick him with my foot, making it impossible for him to nurse. He'd cry pitifully while watching me drink up all the milk. The elders used to say that if you were timid while nursing, you'd stay timid for life. Turns out it was true. Zhong Beiyan had been afraid of me ever since we were little, and he even enjoyed pleasing me. Whenever there was something delicious or fun, he'd offer it to me first. "Hey, don't doubt it, your girl here is just that awesome." By the time we entered middle school, Zhong Beiyan started growing taller. By the 3rd year, he was 1.82 meters tall. His once chubby face had sharpened into angular features, with sword-like eyebrows, bright eyes, and a straight nose. The girls whispered, "He's so handsome, like Huang Xiaoming." A bunch of infatuated fools. So what if he's handsome? I still bully him. What's so great about being handsome? He's a slacker. He won't even get into a good university. Thinking such cold thoughts, I walked past the basketball court, hearing the uncontrollable squeals of admiration from the girls. Ugh, I just didn't get it. What's so exciting about watching a bunch of boys in uniforms chasing after a ball? Why didn't it excite me? These girls, they're truly a different breed. Just as I was lost in thought, a tall figure, reeking of sweat, blocked my way, and my right hand suddenly felt empty. In front of everyone on the school path, Zhong Beiyan, panting like a donkey, snatched my freshly opened soda and gulped it down. "Tastes great, nice and cold. We just beat class 3 by 10 points." He flashed a charming smile, even more dazzling than Huang Xiaoming. "Just because you're charming doesn't mean you can steal my drink." "Your sister? What does winning have to do with me? Why are you stealing my soda?" I kicked at him. Zhong Beiyan dodged and ran off with a bunch of girls from the basketball court watching in shock. "I'll keep working hard," he shouted. "Work your sister? I knew I couldn't catch him, so I yelled after him. I noticed that ever since Zhong Beiyan started middle school, he'd grown even greedier. Every time he saw me drinking soda, he'd just snatch it away. But honestly, I didn't mind. After all, I'm his big sis, right? Zhong Beiyan's habit of frequently stealing my drinks became widely known among the girls at school. The most common explanation was that we were childhood sweethearts, an inseparable pair destined to marry one day. Couples eating and drinking together. Totally normal, right? Ridiculous. I was extremely annoyed by these rumors. So, I decided to get myself a boyfriend. I really did get a boyfriend in my second year of high school. Yep, I told Zhong Beiyan he's my boyfriend. The guy was a top student, though I've since forgotten his name. I just remember the teacher saying he was destined for Tsinghua or Peking University. See, even though I'm carefree and reckless by nature, I have very high standards when it comes to choosing a boyfriend. Zhong Beiyan rushed over, saying, "Calm down. How come you didn't tell me you were getting a boyfriend?" I spun around and landed a roundhouse kick. Zhong Beiyan dodged and yelled as he ran, "You just wait. Someone's bound to straighten you out." Men love to gossip even more than women sometimes. Zhong Beiyan had a mouth the size of a canyon. My dad wasn't too pleased about me getting a boyfriend either. For the first time, he actually questioned my actions. Half joking, half serious, he said, "Don't get too worked up. As your father, I should at least get a heads up before you find a boyfriend. Besides, in high school, your studies should come first. You can worry about dating in college." I said, "Dad, once a girl grows up, you can't control her anymore. Just focus on healing patients and saving lives." Because of this boyfriend business, Zhong Beiyan didn't talk to me for an entire day. But the very next day, he shamelessly came back, still acting the same, continuing to steal my drinks. Men are predictable like that. You can almost set your watch to when they'll come crawling back. But I'm no fortune teller. To my surprise, I overheard some of the girls whispering that Zhong Beiyan had turned over a new leaf. He ditched video games and started focusing on studying. Every night, after the night patrol teacher's warnings and his dorm mates nagging, he'd read textbooks by flashlight under his covers until 3 a.m., then wake up at 6 a.m. to continue cramming. The only thing that didn't change was that every time I walked down the path holding a Sprite or a Coke, hand in hand with my top student boyfriend, Zhong Beiyan would swoop in, snatch my drink, and walk away with a casual wave. Watching that tall, sunny guy, my boyfriend's face would darken into an oval shadow of self-pity, while I'd smile and say, "Don't worry, you'll get used to it." My boyfriend once got jealous and confronted me about it. I waved him off, saying, "I like giving my drinks to him. If you don't like it, don't watch." Yep, that's how cold and domineering I am with boyfriends. By the end of my senior year, the top student had already been admitted to a prestigious university without needing to take the entrance exams. Compared to my top student boyfriend's calm confidence and barely concealed sense of superiority, I, along with most of my classmates, was filled with anxiety over the looming college entrance exams. First love is really such a trivial matter, and in the end, we had a big fight. The night we broke up, the top student asked me to meet him in the small woods behind the school. It was a dark, windy night with no stars or moon. With an eerie gaze, he said he wanted to end our relationship, our first love, and our youth by sleeping together. I laughed. "Don't be stupid. Are you done? I've got to get back to studying." But he kept rambling on with his twisted logic, throwing in tales of virtuous women from ancient times who gave their first time to their beloved before disappearing into obscurity, mostly stories from strange tales from a Chinese studio. I couldn't agree with those stories of one-night flings that vanished without a trace. I lost patience. "Did you forget what I told you? We don't hook up. We study together." Yep, back then, first love was basically equivalent to studying. I turned to leave, but he grabbed me, the strong smell of alcohol hitting me hard. I felt disgusted and tried to push him away, but his grip was frighteningly strong, not allowing me to escape. As he kissed me, he mumbled, "Damn it, I've been your boyfriend for so long, and you won't even let me touch you. It's not fair. If I'd listened to those jerks, I'd have just forced you down ages ago. Drunk or not, the top student was acting like a jerk. My heart ached, but I couldn't even scream. Through the blur, I vaguely heard someone shouting, "Let go." When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. My dad and Aunt Chui were sitting beside me, and Zhong Beiyan was standing nearby. Aunt Chui's eyes were swollen from crying. When she saw me wake up, tears fell again, and she gently touched my forehead, murmuring, "You scared me to death, sweetheart. Thank goodness you're awake." My dad, usually so talkative, barely said a word that day. He just nodded and said, "It's all right now." Then he stood up, patted Zhong Beiyan on the shoulder, and said, "I'm going outside for a smoke." Later, Aunt Chui told me the top student hadn't succeeded because Zhong Beiyan had shown up just in time and knocked him out with a solid right hook. Many years later, Zhong Beiyan told me that the reason he showed up in time to save me from that disaster was because he'd been scheming for a while. He'd bribed both the top student and my roommate with a pack of cigarettes every week and a fashion magazine every month. The deal was that they had to keep him updated on the top students and my whereabouts at all times. When the top student bought a bottle of strong liquor at the convenience store that evening, Zhong Beiyan already knew something was up. It wasn't until many years later that I realized there aren't so many fairy tale rescues or heroic encounters in this world. Often, it's love that drives someone to carefully plot and plan, allowing them to seem like fate's knight in shining armor, saving you at the last possible moment. Because of the top student's tearful drunken apology and my magnanimous forgiveness, the school didn't report him to the police. Instead, they gave him a major demerit and revoked his early admission offer, forcing him to take the college entrance exams with the rest of us. That was the end of the story between the top student and me. After the exams, I never saw him again. Some people don't need a reason. They'll simply disappear from your life, as if they never existed. As for my first love, from this moment on, I choose to forget. That's just how I am, bold and unapologetic. What of it? After the college entrance exam results came out, Zhong Beiyan scored 20 points higher than me, and we both applied to the medical university in the provincial capital. I asked him why he wanted to study medicine with me, and Zhong Beiyan said, "So, I can keep bugging you." When my dad found out Zhong Beiyan was going to the provincial medical university, he was overjoyed. He hugged Zhong Beiyan and kissed him twice, saying, "Yanzi, you're the kind of guy I love." Looking at the somewhat handsome, slightly embarrassed, and a little nervous Zhong Beiyan, I jokingly and mischievously said, "Believe in true love and achieve eternal life. Beiyan, how about a trip to Thailand? My dad's getting old. He can't handle the surgery. That knife should be yours." Zhong Beiyan, full of indignation, yet playfully coy, struck a dainty pose and said, "No, I don't want to." On the day we registered for university, Zhong Beiyan piled all the bags onto himself. When we got to the school, whenever an upperclassman or upperclasswoman came to greet the new students, he stood by my side, calmly saying, "We're together." I ignored Zhong Beiyan's words and protective gestures. The thing I cared about most was the school's freshman club activities. College life was starting, and I had so much to do, so many books to read, so much fun to have. But as beautiful as my hopes were, reality was cruel. I realized my health had suddenly taken a turn for the worse. I didn't participate in military training, and I never went for a run like I did in high school. From my freshman year on, Zhong Beiyan came to see me every day. We studied together, and every night he would walk me back to my dorm. Days passed like this. Many of my suitors were scared off by Zhong Beiyan, yet he never confessed his feelings to me, nor did he get involved with the girls who confessed to him. How strange. You're so strange. What are you trying to do? College went by so quickly. From freshman year to senior year, it felt like watching a movie that ends in the blink of an eye. On Christmas Eve, as Zhong Beiyan was walking me back to my dorm, a guy from the Chinese department at the neighboring university blocked my path and set up heart-shaped candles to confess his love. That night, The girls' dorm was buzzing with excitement and teasing. Some girls shouted things like, "Go for it, man. We support you. Give up, Toad. She won't be with you. Your candles aren't enough. You need at least 200 more." The Chinese major walked up to me, knelt on one knee, and said emotionally, "Oh, goddess in white, I've admired you for 4 years, always keeping my distance out of fear of rejection. Tonight, I'm risking it all. Please be my girlfriend." I said, "I don't love you, but I'm willing." Then I turned to Zhong Beiyan and said, "I have a boyfriend now, so stop following me." Zhong Beiyan didn't say a word. He pulled me back behind him, telling me not to leave, and then got down on his knees, blowing out each candle one by one. After finishing, he stood up and said to the guy, "Kid, she's my girl. Also, trust me, the love I can give you can't, and you won't be able to handle the responsibility. It'll make you despair." Zhong Beiyan added, "I'm doing you a favor by ending this now." The guy wasn't convinced and gathered a group of friends to cause trouble. Zhong Beiyan fought them all by himself, and the scene turned wild. I wanted to stop the fight, but it was no use. As I was getting anxious, a classmate from my department came up to me and said, "Xiaomei, I'm so jealous of you. So many guys fighting over you. Jealous, my foot." In the middle of the fight, Zhong Beiyan's nose started bleeding. I got so worked up that I fainted. The next day, when I woke up, I saw Zhong Beiyan with a face covered in bruises. He looked at me lying in the hospital bed and smiled. "Merry Christmas, Meigo." I started crying. "Beiyan, please stop following me." He said, "I'm sticking with you for the rest of my life." Pointing to my chest, I said, "I'm sick here. It's the same illness my mom had. I won't live long, and I don't want you to end up like my dad, living half his life alone." Zhong Beiyan grabbed my hand tightly and said fiercely, "Who said that? That was in the past. Times have changed. I'm going to study hard, become the best cardiac surgeon and specialist, and I'll cure you." I wanted to refuse again, but no words came out. My mouth was blocked. Such gentle lips. With a crisp slap, the old man in the next hospital bed, who had been watching us with a sweet smile, was suddenly startled. Zhong Beiyan rubbed his cheek, grinning as he said, "Not bad, but you didn't use enough force. Eat more tonight." Furious, I yelled, "So good at kissing. Where was this skill before? Why wait until now? And how many girls have you kissed over the years, huh? You must be really experienced." Injustice. Meigo. I was just afraid you'd reject me. Rubbish. Look at you, such a coward. You've got the heart but no guts. The old woman in the next bed wiped the sweat from her brow and muttered, "This girl hits really hard. I know I won't live that long. I'm going to die. I'm not afraid of dying, but I'm afraid I won't be able to stay with you until the end." I wanted to tell him all this, but again, I couldn't speak. My lips were sealed once more. Perhaps this was what fate intended. After my dad found out I was with Zhong Beiyan, he was overjoyed and even came to the provincial capital with Aunt Chui to visit us. We had a meal together at a small restaurant near the university, and with us was Director Zhao from the cardiology department at the provincial hospital. After a few rounds of drinks, Director Zhao drunkenly grabbed my dad's hand and said, "Brother, that was years ago. It's all in the past. Come back soon. The dean said there's still a place waiting for you. And besides, if you come back, we can save lives together, raise our kids, and drink together. How great would that be?" My dad chuckled twice, patted Director Zhao's hand, and said, "Please pass on my thanks to our mentor, but I've been out of it for too long. My hands are rusty. I can't go back." Thinking about all that, I'm too ashamed to face him again. I swore I'd never touch that scalpel again. Director Zhao wanted to say more, but my dad raised his hand, smiling, indicating the conversation was over. No need to say more. Zhong Beiyan had too much to drink and started rambling nonsense. "Uncle, I'm really working hard, just waiting for that day." My dad patted Zhong Beiyan's head and said, Yanzi, you're a good kid. You've been mature since you were young. It hasn't been easy for you to get this far. Uncle supports you, always. Aunt Shui started crying again, and while wiping her tears, she whispered to Zhong Beiyan, "You little rascal, you better take good care of Maisie in the future. If you turn out like your dad, messing around, I'll break your legs." On the day of our university graduation, we took pictures by the lotus pond. I leaned close to Zhong Beiyan and whispered in his ear, "Yanzi, let's get married." Clearly, Zhong Beiyan wasn't prepared for such a straightforward proposal. He looked at me, let out a loud shout, and jumped up, running off. The girls standing on chairs to pose for the picture screamed. One girl fell onto the one next to her, who screamed as well and leaned on another. Like a stack of dominoes, everyone toppled over. A girl in the back row fell into the arms of a boy in the front row, but the boy couldn't hold her and ended up crashing into our teacher and the department head. The department head's full head of black hair was yanked off, revealing a shiny white scalp like a fluorescent light. The microphone he was holding fell into the pond, which had just been treated with some fertilizer. The entire scene was chaos. 20 minutes later, Zhong Beiyan came back, drenched, with his graduation gown clinging to him like a wet black chicken. I asked him where he'd been. He said he went to cool off. He knew I was waiting for his answer. I wanted him to give me an obvious, expected answer. But Zhong Beiyan said, "We can't get married yet." I raised my hand, ready to strike. Zhong Beiyan, talking as fast as a TV commercial host, said, "Once you're cured, we'll get married." I asked him why. Zhong Beiyan said, "Because I need to cure your illness first." Even though he said that, I didn't follow his plan. Come on, I'm in charge of this household. I call the shots. A year after Zhong Beiyan started working at the provincial hospital, we got married. On our wedding day, we invited everyone we could, hosting a 3-day banquet. My dad said, "My daughter's wedding has to be a grand event, something to remember." On our wedding day, Aunt Shui cried while I sat in a chair and smiled. I couldn't stand up anymore. The day after the wedding, Zhong Beiyan and my dad personally escorted me into the operating room. The lead surgeon was Director Zhao, my dad's former classmate, colleague, and close friend, and Zhong Beiyan was part of the surgical team too. I watched as Zhong Beiyan nervously finished his prayers and put on his surgical gown. I grabbed his sleeve and said, "Beiyan, that academic overachiever, he really only held my hand. I never let him kiss me, and I definitely didn't let him touch my chest." Zhong Beiyan nearly spit out his mask. He said, I know. Then he awkwardly added, "That time I stole your drink, it was because Uncle, no, our dad, said you couldn't drink soda with your heart condition." I laughed and cried at the same time. I know. As they were about to administer the anesthesia, I grabbed Zhong Beiyan's hand again. Pointing to my belly, I said, "Beiyan, promise me, no matter whether I wake up or not, you'll find a way to bring him into this world and raise him." Beiyan's eyes were filled with tears, though he didn't speak. He just nodded vigorously. "I may not wake up, but I must leave behind a part of me for you." I could feel the anesthesia spreading through my head. Damn, why is it so numb? Zhong Beiyan, Dad, where are you? I knew I had fallen asleep, but I didn't know if I would wake up. But whether I wake up or not, I have no regrets. That's a lie. Come on, who am I? I'm Li Dongmei, like the plum blossoms that bloom in winter. No matter how cold it gets, no matter how much I suffer, I'll survive. And besides, Zhong Beiyan, Dad, for you both, I will wake up. I haven't finished basking in your love yet. Life and death are small matters, right? Death is nothing to fear. The important thing is I still need to keep teasing you too. I haven't loved you enough yet.